what's up, guys, and welcome to yet another exciting edition of Real Talk TV. Of course, your host, the Black Hawaiian, me, Lionel Wright. And, like we always like to do, I bring in different people that's involved in combat sports, MMA, you like to call it, or kickboxing or whatnot. And we sit down and we talk story about them, or with them, I should say. And right now, I got a guest, guys, and I'm very excited because for me, I've been a longtime fan of this girl, and I'm so happy to bring her to the show, guys. So I want to introduce you to Bryanna Fissori. How's it going, Bryanna?
Aloha. It's going great.
All right. So, Bryanna, this show is real simple. We're just going to find out more information about who you are and what you do. And it's funny because, you coming in today with the glasses, you look at this girl on television and you're never going to guess that she is an MMA fighter, a professional MMA fighter. And I tell you what, if you saw her with her jacket off, she has big muscles. This girl is awesome.
Don't share my secrets.
Yeah. You would not believe, guys. And I'm in awe every time when I see her fight. She's a great girl and she does a great job. All right, so Bryanna, state for us, what is your full name?
My full name is Bryanna Jean Fissori. Same middle name as Ronda Rousey, which must mean that I'm headed to the top.
All right, that sounds great. So besides your full name, like people know you as something. So what is your fight name?
Oh, I am most certainly the Pink Ranger.
All right. So for those of you that don't know her, she goes by the Pink Ranger, and she has these great shirts. And of course, as you can tell, she's dressed in pink. She's always wearing pink, and it's great because not only is she a pro MMA fighter, but she is the first. I'm going to tell you that she's the first Hawaii-based fighter that is in Bellator MMA.
Female fighter.
Female fighter. Excuse me. Right. The very first. So it's historic. I love her. She's doing a great job.
Ta-da.
Right. So, before we get into all the MMA stuff and the great things that you've done in MMA, let's go back to the beginning. All right. So where are you born and raised? So where are you from?
Well, I'm from the middle of nowhere. If you head straight north, turn left, middle of nowhere, that's where I'm from. Small dairy town in Northern California called Orland. Right outside of Chico, which is a little better known town, but not by much. So pretty much middle of nowhere. But I'm proud to be from there and wouldn't change my upbringing.
So when you talk about a small town, like what are you talking about? What is the population?
I don't know what the population is now, but I can tell you that my elementary school was kindergarten through 8th grade, and there were about 100 kids in this school.
Wow. Okay. So it's kind of like Molokai then.
Something like that.
All right. Well, that's pretty cool. So speaking about elementaries, what elementary or intermediate did you go to?
Lake Elementary School is where I went to elementary school, which is something that's rare these days. I went to school with the same kids from kindergarten to 8th grade. So that's 9 years of upbringing with the same people. Wow. That's a long time.
That is, same 100 kids.
My best friend I've known since we were 4.
Wow. That's great. That's awesome. Actually, that's just like Hawaii. I mean, I myself come from a small upbringing like that, so that I can really appreciate that. It speaks a lot. Okay, so, when you were in elementary, what kind of sports were you involved in?
Well, I played all the normal sports at school, which would be soccer, softball, ran track, did basketball, and not all of those were ones that I was good at all. Okay. Outside of school, I played softball, so that was kind of my growing up years. It changed a little bit when I got to high school, but I always played sports, but never considered myself an athlete.
Mm-hmm. So you back to like you said that you come from like a small town. So it was a small farming town.
Farming town. I grew up. My dad milked cows since before I was born. 60 to 90 head of Jersey cows, so I can milk cows. Hay. I spent my summers, picking food, whatever crops were around, and winter was oranges, feeding calves. When we got in trouble, we'd have to muck out calf stalls. Uh-huh. So traditional, middle of nowhere, country town, growing up background.
So have you done cow mugging before?
Oh, you mean like cow tipping? Is that what you're saying?
Well, cow mugging is like where they castrate the baby, the bulls.
Yes, yeah. And dehorning. And
wow.
I actually raised sheep when I was in 4-H, which isn't a big thing out here in Hawaii, but it's kind of a agricultural-based youth program. So I raised sheep and would sell them at the local county fair every year.
Wow.
Yep. So
that's probably where your wrestling comes from, then, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Mutton busting, whether we wanted to or not.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Okay, so like once you started to get like older and into high school, what high school did you attend?
I went to Corning Union High School, which is just outside of Orland. It was the same one that my mom went to, and my mom is absolutely fantastic. I used to love to read her high school yearbooks, and I was definitely that girl, student body president, FFA president, like just loved everything about high school. I really, really did. And surprisingly enough, that most people wouldn't think of me this way, but I was Miss Corning. Yeah, I absolutely loved high school, but I played volleyball, soccer, softball, ran track, distance. These were not built for speed, but they're built for distance.
Uh-huh.
And field hockey. And field
Wow.
hockey I continued to play into college, but I absolutely loved field hockey. That was my favorite.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
In hindsight, maybe I should have wrestled.
I was going to say that. Did you
Yeah,
did no wrestling, huh?
Wrestling wasn't a big thing for girls in my area. There were maybe 2 within a 3 or 4 town radius.
Wow.
Female wrestlers.
Sounds
so
like you would have
it
been
wasn't really
first
a
place
thing.
automatically then.
Right? Put me in, coach.
Make the weight, collect the medal, and then you're off to the next, right? Wow, that's great. Okay. Well, I'm definitely learning a lot more about you than I've ever known, so that's pretty awesome. So now, when you were in high school, and going through all of that good stuff, when did you start to kind of notice like combat sports or mixed martial arts?
Really, I didn't. It wasn't until I was in law school already that I really paid any attention to combat sports at all. I love being on a team. I love the team environment. So I was always on team sports, and I loved that. Even now, I think of my MMA team as a real team. We go out there together because they're all such a part
Like a
of me.
family, right?
Yeah.
All right, so kind of jumping ahead there a little bit. So about the lawyer thing. So after high school, what did you do? You went
After
to
high
college.
school, I did go to college. I
Right.
did my first year at Fresno State and finished at Chico State.
Okay.
My undergraduate degree is in agriculture business because I
Okay.
was from a farm town.
Right.
And agriculture and hunger issues, those are my passions. I worked for the Farm Bureau for a little while as a reporter, and I've been a reporter going into college from high school. Been writing for quite a while, and I still write today. But the agriculture stuff is something I'm very passionate about, especially being from a small town. Water issues were a big thing
Yeah.
for me, and I love doing the research on that. So I finished at Chico State, and again, I did play field hockey a little bit in college, and that was for Chico State.
Wow.
And I loved it there. It's a beautiful little college, small town. Although it was Playboy's #1 party school of the 90s, I was not there for that part.
That's pretty cool. So you got a degree in law.
Yes, so I have a undergraduate degree in agriculture business, and I have a graduate degree in law. So I have a law degree. I'm not a practicing attorney. I haven't taken the bar yet because I finished law school right as I got into combat sports.
Wow.
So it was one or the other. Take the bar now or fight now. One of those I can do when I'm older. One of them maybe not. So I'm still fighting.
All right. Okay, good. So how did you get to Hawaii? Or when did you get to Hawaii?
I
should
got
say?
to Hawaii in 2009.
Okay. And what brought you out
And-
here?
Well, I didn't want to turn the car around, and I had nowhere better to be. So I was living in Kansas City for a little while, and had already figured out how to telecommute lifetime when I was going to law school, so I could go to law school from anywhere at that point. And never been to Hawaii, didn't know anyone in Hawaii, didn't know anyone who knew anyone in Hawaii, and I landed on Oahu. And I stayed in a hostel in Waikiki for 2 weeks, and I got my identity stolen, no money, stole mangoes off trees in the middle of the night for about a week because I had nothing.
Wow.
And that's where I really figured out what it feels like to be alive, surrounded by a bunch of crazy foreigners in the middle of Waikiki, when I didn't know anybody, to where I am today is just a huge transformation, and I wouldn't change a minute of it.
Wow. That's awesome. So you get to Hawaii, you go through all of this beginning,
Craziness.
craziness in the beginning. How did you end up training mixed martial arts?
You're gonna love this.
Okay.
I answered a Craigslist ad for sparring partners.
Oh my goodness.
That's what happened.
Who was giving who put the ad out?
South Oahu MMA.
South Oahu MMA.
South Oahu MMA.
All right.
And we were a really strong team for quite some time. But it started out with me and Coach Avery, Coach Guy, and my sparring partner, Matt Myers.
Wow.
Of Myers Therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that he's come a long way too. He also fought. And that was it. And we built from there, and I just kept coming to class. And eventually, Coach Guy put me into some jiu-jitsu tournaments, and I did okay. So we kind of stuck with that for a minute. And after about a year of training, we got to the point like, hey, let's see what happens. Let's put her in a cage.
Wow.
And that's what they did.
That's
And,
awesome. So, I mean,
awesome.
you know, I remember the early days of South Oahu MMA and seeing you guys come out. And then I remember seeing the numbers start to grow.
Yes.
Because next thing you know, you guys were in like every event. Every MMA event that was out there in Hawaii, you guys were a part of it. You guys always had fighters. And I remember, I think the first fight that you had, I mean, when they first put you in the ring. And it's funny because, like, for me, like, I've always seen you as this very athletic, built person. And also, we knew that it was in you. But to see you actually competing, it was like, wow. And you did good. I mean, you actually have a very good base. We noticed you got great wrestling, and your striking has actually been coming along pretty well as well.
Definitely making progress.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. So besides the fighting, which everybody, you know, more or less knows you as if they know you for fighting, what else have you done in the combat sport industry?
Well, like I mentioned before, I'm a writer. I wrote for a lot of agriculture publications growing up. And then once I got towards the end of law school, which is kind of when I started training, it's kind of when the emphasis shifted. So actually my doctoral thesis was on a combat sport related issue, some UFC ancillary rights stuff, which was an exciting paper to write. If I ever want to get in UFC, I'm probably not going to share that with anybody. But from there, I started writing for several publications just here and there. I'm the legal analyst for BoxingInsider.com, and I write for MyMMAnews.com. I've worked for a couple of other publications, and I've also done quite a bit of stuff for MMA Hawaii.
Okay.
So that's where I got to know the local scene as well.
And actually, I've seen you as a photographer as well.
Yes, I'm a horrible photographer. Please
Really?
don't judge me on my photography skills.
Oh, boy.
Usually they're just like, hey, she can write. We'll give her a camera, too. And I'm like, I can't find the on button. Calling my boss, I can't find where's the on button. So,
That's
yeah,
great.
not my forte.
Well, I tell you what, to see you ringside with the camera, you look like you know what you're doing. So I just
Try to own it.
I've never seen the picture, so I can't say anything about it. But I've seen you with the camera. So, wow, that's awesome. Okay, so so you come to Hawaii, you start this MMA thing, and you find out that you're pretty good at it. So now comes, like we discussed earlier, you start fighting pro MMA, and you end up in Bellator MMA. So how did that happen?
Here's the progression. You go to Hawaii and you fight everybody you can. There's not that many. The problem with fighters here, especially females, is that if we aren't fighting each other, we are already trained together. So some of my training partners would have been in my weight class, but we weren't going to fight. So my first opponent was great. My second opponent was flown in from Vegas. My third opponent was flown in from Colorado. The fourth opponent was someone that I knew and had trained with a little bit. Fifth opponent happened to be someone in my weight class that I took at a catch weight from here. And then after that, all my fights are on mainland. And that's hard because no one wants to fly the Hawaii fighter out because it's expensive.
Yeah.
So the
or
community,
either way, right? Or just flying people to fight here in Hawaii, which actually happens all the time. Because like you said, I mean, Hawaii, it being a small state, you can only fight so many people before you fought everybody in the industry at your weight class. And you being you compete at 135.
135, 145 for Bellator.
There's not too many 135ers around in Hawaii. We got a lot of 155ers. We got a lot of 205ers out there as well, I'm sure. Women. So like how did you get the call for Bellator MMA? How did that work?
Well, it kind of just happened. I'd been fighting, I think I'd had 5 fights straight or so on the mainland. So maybe 4. It was a bunch. We went all over the place, New Jersey, Vegas, California. I was I've done most of my own management. So if there's a promoter out there on the mainland that doesn't know me, you're not checking your emails. Because I've contacted so many trying to get fights, and I had 7 fights in a row decline to fight me or cancel.
Wow.
I would actually gone into fight camp and then got the call after I'd signed the contract with that wasn't going to happen. And this had happened twice, not to mention all the ones that they've been like, all right, this girl, will you fight her? I'm like, yes. And they're like, no. So I went through so much in the beginning of last year trying to find an opponent. And then I reached out to a promoter that I'd talked to before, and just to let them know, hey, I'm pro, just if you have anything, we'll take anything. And he was actually with a different company at that time and was doing some matchmaking for Bellator. And that's how I ended up the right place at the right time. And it was really something special because nobody there really knew what I was capable of. You could look at somebody's record, but it wasn't a lot of film. It wasn't like I had a lot of credentials.
And that's what I was going to say, is that it seems like they bring you in to build someone else.
Oh, I was supposed to not win.
Yeah.
Nobody told me that, though.
So which gets to the part where your first fight in Bellator MMA, and you win
against one of Czech Congo's students.
Wow, that's amazing. So my next question.
She was flown in from France, I believe.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So my next question is this: when are you fighting next for Bellator?
Hopefully in the summer.
Okay. So besides that, you've actually fought for other promotions.
I have. I got to go to Japan and fight for Pancrase. And I fought Colleen Schneider for that one, and it was a really, really, really close split decision. So that was a great fight, and the Japanese fans were awesome. They loved the Pink Ranger thing. I don't even think they know my name there. I'm pretty sure I've never heard anybody in the promotion call me anything but Pink Ranger.
Pink Ranger. Pink Ranger.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so Pancrase comes to Hawaii, and they had Pancrase Hawaii here at the Blaisdell, and you fought there as well.
I did, and it was my first time fighting back in Hawaii in, I think, 3 years.
Wow.
I mean, it'd been a long time since my last amateur fight. And so it was great to have all the fans come out for that, and I just had so much support. It's definitely different fighting in your hometown when you're used to fighting away. Definitely a different thing, but I'd done it before as an amateur, so it wasn't a big deal.
I'll tell you what, this girl promoted the heck out of that card. I everywhere I seen her out there promoting on Facebook and everything, and I mean, she got the word out. Everybody, I mean, I think half the people there bought tickets just to see you.
There was a lot of Pink Ranger shirts there, which I'm very proud of. Thank you guys for coming out. But another thing, as far as like the supporting, I was really blessed that a lot of people came out to support me on my away fights, just as far as financially and coming to my self-defense seminars, buying shirts, just giving, because the promotions, even all the pro promotions that I've been fighting for, don't pay for my ticket out there.
Right.
Or my coaches, and I always bring my 2 coaches with me wherever I go. So it was really expensive.
So besides the fighting thing, you also help with a couple of different nonprofits as well.
Well, I do women's self-defense seminars, and the proceeds from that, the majority of that goes to the Hawaii Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And I do that because we are in such a violent sport, and sometimes it gets a real stigma about it as far as being just based on violence, pure violence, and that's all people see. And so promoting keeping the fight in the cage and keeping women safe, something that seemed to fit pretty smoothly.
All right. So, we're just about almost at the end of this interview, and I've had a great time talking with you. I've learned a lot of great things that I haven't known about you, even though I've seen you since you landed. Shoot. So, for people out there in general who are thinking about mixed martial arts or possibly getting into, training, especially for young women out there, what kind of words of advice would you have for somebody like that out there?
Do it. Try it. Don't just try the jiu-jitsu class because you may find out you're a striker. Don't just try boxing class because you may find out you like to kick. It's definitely something that is great if you want an outlet, something that's easy to be passionate about, to stay in shape and have fun. And then if you decide you want to take it to that competitive level, it's definitely possible. any reasonable age. There's so many great coaches here in Hawaii. I train with Rich De Los Reyes and Team Women of War, and also at House and Gracie Waterfront. Amazing coaches at both places, and it's with the women's MMA on the rise. It's much more welcoming for females these days too.
Oh, that's great. So, besides like the whole fight game thing, or I guess like, so, right now you're a fighter, you've done some stuff in media. What are your plans for like the future? So after MMA, do you want to still be involved after you finish fighting, or what are your plans?
I do. I teach jiu-jitsu for kids at House and Gracie Waterfront, and I love coaching. I love being the assistant coach for my team. So that's something I'm passionate about, is doing the coaching aspect of it. Obviously, I do the writing, and I do a lot of the health part of writing too, helping fighters figure out what works for them as far as weight cuts and ways to stay in the game and the science behind a lot of things. But also, this has been kind of a mission for me as well. I'm very much a faith-based fighter, and it's given me a way to minister to people that I wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. Jesus Didn't Tap has been a big supporter of mine as far as companies, and they've been great. But just having that recognition that this is a journey for me and a mission for me has been just great for motivation, and I think it's going to continue, and I can continue to motivate others that way.
Oh, very good. So, one more time, I just want to thank you so much for coming out and coming and talking with us. And, for all of you MMA fans out there, now you know who Bryanna Fissori is. And when you hear her name and you hear her being a part of a show that's happening on Bellator or anywhere else, make sure that you tune in and you support this girl. Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right.